My name is John Paul Quintero. I'm 9 years old and I have diamond black fan anemia.
John Paul was diagnosed with an extremely rare disease known as diamond black fan anemia at only 2 months old. But what exactly is this disease? The answer might be hard to find, as only 700 people worldwide have the disease. It's an exceptionally dangerous form of anemia, which is a condition that prevents a body from producing red blood cells. In many cases, patients take steroids that stimulate red blood cell production. But in others, these patients do not respond to the steroids and must receive blood transfusions to replenish their red blood cell count. John Paul requires transfusions every 2 weeks, but this constant replenishment of blood causes his body to produce too much iron, for which he takes medication. Marisol, John Paul's mother, was given a surprise only a few weeks after her son was born.
That moment he was rushed from the hospital he was born to another hospital. So I actually I didn't get to hold him. I thought once I would leave the hospital a couple of days later that I'd be able to, pick him up from the other hospital and bring him home. Unfortunately, he stayed there for about 12 days, received transfusions, and about a month and a half into it, he started looking extremely pale. Took him into the doctors and they did a blood count. And had I not taken him, he would have passed away in his sleep. And they gave us the results. They walked in, and I was still hopeful. I thought that they would tell us, they thought that it would be, diamond black fan, and it's not. And that wasn't the case. They said, well, we got the results, and it's what we thought, which is, John Paul has diamond black fan.
After the drama of the first few months, Marisol balanced work, John Paul's health, her marriage with husband Juan, and the care of her daughter Jacqueline. Despite the difficulties presented by John Paul's condition, Marisol and Juan together raised John Paul and Jacqueline healthily and without worry. John Paul attends Sacred Heart Elementary School, where he enjoys playing basketball, football, and soccer with his friends. His friends all know about his condition, and by understanding it and not treating John Paul any differently, they help him stay positive. John Paul's condition often causes sleepiness and distracts him throughout the school day, but he manages to stay on top of his work with his mom's help. Every other Friday, John Paul takes the day off school for his blood transfusion. The process of taking John Paul to the transfusions has recently become even more difficult for Marisol. Her husband, who was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease only a couple of years ago, is currently completely incapacitated. This came as a great shock and blow to Marisol and her family. She was left on her own to take care of her children while working to support them.
I did the transfusions by myself up until John Paul was 3, and once John Paul turned 3, then he started assisting, so it made it a lot easier. I didn't miss work as much. However, now that he's ill, it is frustrating because it's not just the transfusion that I wish that he was around, to help me with. It's raising them. It's, it is hard. It's hard to pay bills. It's hard to, not allow my stress to, get frustrated with them. So it is frustrating. It's frustrating for me that I don't have that support.
So what happens at a blood transfusion? John Paul and Marisol arrive at the UCLA Medical Center in the morning, and John Paul receives a port.
This thing right here, they needle it in, like they get the needle and poke it in, and then at the end of the day, they take it out.
This is a small device connected to a major vein in his body, and it's used to place IV needles in more quickly and without pain. His doctors check the bags of blood received from the blood bank to ensure their purity, then package them for the transfusion. When they finish, John Paul returns to his room for the transfusion. A nurse places a needle into his port first to clean and sterilize the area, and then a vital medication to make sure John Paul doesn't have an allergic reaction. The blood begins going into his body, and the entire process takes about 2 hours. During the process, John Paul likes to play Xbox and sometimes even takes a nap. Following the process, John Paul and his mother are exhausted and happy to get home.
now that it's over, I feel kind of still sleepy. It feels kind of hard because the process is a lot.
I feel that the process of John Paul going to the hospital every 2 weeks may make him feel overwhelmed if there's things that are processed in the class that he obviously hasn't processed.
Despite all the trials life has given Marisol, she works through them with the help of her family and friends. This isn't to say, though, that her experiences haven't had an impact on her.
I would have never understood how strong I really am. You know, I always think if all of these trials and tribulations are preparing me for something worse that's going to happen. However, I've learned to just enjoy each and every moment. Enjoy the fact that the sun comes up. Enjoy the fact that, that I get to see John Paul, even though he can get on my nerves sometimes. But he is your normal kid, fights with his sister, so it's made me, I believe, a very stronger person.
John Paul also well understands the dangers and problems presented to him by his condition. However, he stays positive and enjoys spending time with his mother and sister, like any other kid, and his happiness has inspired those around him. All together, they help each other hold on with John Paul as their bond.
I'm Tom Quindero, and I approve this message.
All right.